Hello, it's Melinda from Scrapbooking How you all going today? Coming on with a Christmas project, an art journal page for you today. So I have pre-gessoed my page. I did that off camera because that's a bit boring to watch. Now I've dived into my washi tape stash. I'm determined to get some of these washi tape rolls used up. So I grabbed a whole bunch of black, white and greys and decided to add some to the bottom right and in a moment the top left of the page. Didn't really know what I was doing on this page. Didn't know until I finished the page how it would look like. I knew I wanted to use the stencil face, and I grabbed some napkins as well. So you see those shortly. I swear washi tapes multiply overnight on the roll because they never seem to go down. Except if you're in the middle of a project and expect a certain amount of washi tape to be on the roll, then they run out. So just making sure, for no particular reason, but my brain wanted it to be that way, all the lines are going the same way in my book. So some washi tape is vertical and some is horizontal. And just sort of adding bits at different lengths to add a bit of interest. As I said, trying to use some washi tape up because it does have a shelf life. Some of the rolls I've gone to use have been too old and had to throw out, which is a bit of a waste of money. So you have to get in and use up your washi stash. So because I'm sticking this washi tape over a gessoed surface, I am using matte gel medium to go under and on top of the washi tape just to seal it in. Washi tape is a very low tack adhesive, so it doesn't like to stick in mixed media projects without that extra assistance of glue. Then I decided the washi tape was too bright, so I added more white gesso over the top. Now my current white gesso is quite translucent, so sometimes I do need 2 layers when I am applying it to things, but in this instance one layer was just perfect. So just drying off the washi tape. So now the fun begins. I've grabbed this napkin from our website. All the products will be listed in the YouTube video below, and there'll also be a post on our Facebook page with this video link in it, and all the products over there are actually directly linked to our website, so you can go find them if you want to replicate this page or do something similar. So when you buy paper napkins, you need to remove the backing layer, either 1 or 2 layers, the white layers, and just work with the translucent top layer. So I previously did that. And then I'm using the water cutting technique. What is the water cutting technique, you ask? It is when you grab a paintbrush, and my paintbrush was a bit thick, but you dip it into water and get it damp and trace around the part of the napkin that you want to separate. And then you can gently tear the piece of napkin out that you want to take out. And it gives the edges a bit of a fuzzy look, and they tend to meld and melt into your page a bit more. So just using that, but be very careful when you wet the napkin, it becomes super duper fragile. So I'm gluing the napkin down with matte medium. So it's a very liquid adhesive. The one I'm using is from Montmartre here in Australia. But you want one that's very liquidy and very runny. Matte gel medium, the gel that's thicker, doesn't work so well in this instance. So you definitely want the more runnier one. Or you could water down some like PVA glue or Mod Podge, but just with those 2 later ones I mentioned, they do dry a bit glossy. The matte medium in its title dries matte, which is really cool. So just adding a little cluster of those, still staying in the grey tones. I didn't really know what I was doing with this art journal page, as I said. So sort of staying in the neutral tones for now, and then I can always go and add colour later. So when you're gluing down the napkins, you want to put a layer of adhesive on your art journal page or on your project where you want your napkin to be. Gently place your napkin down and then gently go over the top. Once the napkin gets wet, it gets very fragile and can tear super easily. So you just have to be a bit careful. So here I'm just grabbing some stencils. So I grabbed a couple of designs and ended up only using one. As I said, I didn't really know what I was doing on this page. I just thought, oh, let's keep adding stuff and then something inspirational strike and we will grab it. So this is our mini Poinsettia Christmas stencil in our 6x6 size, and I'm just using some archival ink and a blending brush. And again in that grey neutrally tone, just sprinkling some stenciling in the clusters and out beyond the clusters as well. So I'm stenciling over the washi tape, I'm stenciling over the napkin, just sort of joining it all together. But again, it's quite subtle, so it's not really sort of too bold. It's still like a background element or a corner element. Now I grab my face stencil, Lady with Roses, I believe she's called. The name of the stencils will be listed below in the YouTube video. And I'm just penciling in where her face will go. So I'm only using part of the stencil. So if you've got face stencils and this lady has a big rose in her hair, which I have used before in its entirety and it looks awesome, but look at your stencils in a different way. Can I use part of it? Can I use just her face or a profile just to make something different? And this time I did use her neck, which is like a rose stem. I could have left that out and just done a normal neck, but I decided to put the rose stems in there. So look at your stencils and look at using them in a different way, and then you get a different look. So I've grabbed a bunch more stencils. Sorry, not stencils. What am I using? Napkins. Grabbed a bunch more napkins. So the advantage of this napkin is it was actually the same design in 3 different sizes, which I don't find very often. Only apart from Christmas, I believe I can find napkins that are the same design but in 3 different sizes. So this napkin come in our normal about 6x6 size, come in cocktail, which is a bit smaller, and it come in dinner size. That's what they call them. So they call them cocktail, lunch, and then dinner napkins. So the same design in different sizes, which is what I want to work with. So again, I removed the white layers on the back. And instead of doing the water technique, these napkins had a lot of fine little details. You'll pick that up more in the pictures at the end. So I decided to cut the designs out with my scissors as close to the coloured images as possible. If you're going to do this, I'll make a suggestion. Don't remove your white layers until after you've cut out your image, because it's a lot easier. Your napkin becomes very fragile when you remove those 2 back layers. So when you're cutting with scissors, it's better to have the additional layers on your napkin. So do as you're told, don't do as I do in the video, because I did it backwards. If there's a backwards way to do things, I will do it that way. I love the napkins because anything that is white on the napkin, so all the white around that I didn't cut off, around the red and white foliage, actually sort of disappeared. You don't really see it unless you get your nose really close to my journal, and hopefully no one will do that. And the napkins make a really seamless look on your page. It's why I love using them. They are a little fragile and do take a little bit of practice to get used to, but once you've mastered them, once you've used them a couple of times, you're good to go. You're good to do lots of different techniques with it. So basically I'm using the red and green sort of flourishy, bushy things. Could be mistletoe with the red berries. I don't know. It's some sort of Christmas berry. Using it as her hair. So I'm wanting it to sort of be her hair, but sort of flow in a particular way, not look as if it's just stuck on, but it is, if that makes sense. Clear as mud, right? So I'm positioning the sort of, the napkin has a bit of a curl to it, so I'm positioning the sort of the curls to curl in the correct way. And having the 3 different sizes is really ideal. So cutting off the red and green stripe, putting that aside, I'll use that later, and cutting off the word Merry Christmas. Again, I'll put that in my box and that'll come out on a card, or I'll use that later at some stage. Don't throw any little bits of napkins out, they all come in handy. The only exception to that rule is the white pieces I throw out, because I've got oodles of white pieces. So I'm just sort of building up the layers and building up her hair where I think her hair needs to sort of naturally flow. So sort of her hair's flowing in the wind, if you get that drift, and sort of, I don't know. That's the look I was going for. That's what was going through my head when I was attempting this page. So as you can see, I'm gluing them down in stages. Usually I'd get all my pieces first and sort of have them all laid out, take them off and glue them down. But I found the napkins were sort of moving around, and even when I breathed on the page, they would fly off the page. So I decided to stick a few down and then just sort of just keep building. So you can do it in either way. On these particular napkins, you actually get 4 of each design. On most napkins, you get 4 of each design, and we sell them in packs of 2, so you get 8 images to play with. So plenty of images to do something like this, where you want multiple pieces of the same foliage, which makes it look really cool. So I end up cutting a couple of the foliage pieces in half just because I wanted half little pieces to fill in a couple of little gaps. And the napkin sort of had a bit of a stalk at one end, so I'm making sure I just take that stalk off when I'm trying to line two pieces up together. So it doesn't look like she's got like a stalk just growing out of nowhere. And I've also tried to overlap the napkins a bit so there's sort of not any gaps of where the branches come from, so it all looks like hair. Does that make sense? Yeah, clear as mud, right? So just giving that a very good dry. And then we bring back in the stencil. And I apologise, my head is going to get in the way a lot. For anyone that's new to my business or my channel, I do have low vision. Sometimes I have to be quite close to my journal page to see what I'm doing. And then my big head gets in the way. So I am exploring some other filming angles, but for now, you just get to see my head a bit. Note to self, I should brush hair before I start filming a video. So now I have just penciled in her facial features from the stencil, and I grabbed a black paint pen and I'm just colouring in the lines that I made with a pencil and putting all her facial features in to bring her alive. So I leave the pencil lines there until I've gone over them with the paint pen. Using different thicknesses for different lines, because if you're trying to colour in a rather large area with a small paint pen, A, it takes forever, and B, you get all these little white bits showing. So having Posca paint pens or any brand of paint pen in different nib sizes is very handy in your stash. So as you can see, she's slowly coming together. So just working away, connecting some of the lines in the stencil that particularly weren't connected just because I felt that they need to be connected. It's hard with stencils. Sometimes you've got to leave little break lines here and there for the stencil to work, but when I use the stencil, I sometimes join those together. So at the moment, I only have the foliage and her neck on the left-hand side of the page. And I find that looks a bit funny, so I go and put the foliage on the right-hand side. Even though it's over the napkin, you can see it just a little. So just fiddling with her eye and her eyelashes and fixing up bits of her face where I think it needs fixing up. So now I bring in the stencil again, and now I'm tracing that leaf and stem that's on the right hand side of her body. I apologise, you can't see that. The reason I went in straight with paint pen is I knew exactly where it was going to go. I was happy with where it was going to go. Plus, it was going over napkins, and if I did in pencil, I wouldn't be able to see it anyway. So I went in straight with paint pen. So now I'm just colouring it in and making the lines solid to make it stand out a bit more. Again, using a thicker paint pen where I need to. You could always paint this in with a paintbrush, but I find the paint pens I have a lot more control over than a paintbrush and a blob of paint on the end. So just fiddling away with little bits and keep drying in between so I don't drag my hand over something wet, which is what I've been known to do. Now I was umming and ahhing about what to put near her ear. There was sort of a white gap, and I was umming and ahhing whether to put in another line. I put the stencil over the top to see if the line would work where it was, I think it was her earring that was there, and I decided no, I will leave it. It was a bit more bigger white space than I wanted, but I didn't know how to, didn't want to put a big harsh line there, so I decided in the end to leave it. I'm really happy with how much white space I've actually got left on this page. Now, white space and myself don't usually work. I usually like to cover everything with lots of colour. So I'm thinking still here, so I decided that the edge of the page needed a bit of scruffiness, so I grabbed my archival ink pad. Could be done with any black ink pad, but that was the one sitting on my desk. And just scruffing up around the edges and deliberately pressing a bit harder here and there so you get some scruff marks onto the page. It gives it a bit of a border without giving it a harsh border. Again, playing with that stencil to see if I could make that work. But in the end, I decided to no, walk away, leave it be. Knowing when to stop is hard. Knowing when to stop and walk away from your art journal is very hard. And I'm still learning that. Sometimes I just do one more step thinking it would be the right thing to do, and then, yeah, I don't like it. So it's hard to take things back. So now I believe I'm grabbing a white paint pen. I think I've got the white one in my hand. Again, apologise about my head, but what I'm doing is just putting in some highlights on her face, just because the black looked too black. Does that make sense? The black looked too black. So often if I find I've got somewhere on my page that is too black, I will bring my white gel pen in and do some highlights. If I've got something on my page that is too white, I will bring in some more black. I felt that the poinsettias needed to sort of come up and around the other corner, because the two opposite corners there, the bottom left and the top right, were a bit naked, were a bit white for me. So just dusting on a bit of the acrylic, what are we doing? Archival ink pad. I think I'm touching up with the eye now. So it needed a saying, so I was rifling through my different sayings, and because she was a Christmas girl, I landed on my Delusions sayings. So in case you can't read it, and it's pretty hard on the screen, I went with the saying, I'm trying to get into the Christmas spirit, but I can't get the bloomin' top off the bottle. I'm assuming it's referring to a alcoholic bottle, we'll put it that way. So I'm cutting the stickers up, and it was just the perfect little spot down there on the bottom left hand side. So I'm cutting the stickers up and gluing them down. I do add extra adhesive when I glue these stickers down, because they are going over gesso, they're probably going over matte medium, they're going over a bit of ink, and they're paper stickers. So if you want them to stay in your art journal where you put them, just add a little bit more adhesive and they won't move. Love Delusion sayings. They are just so funny and so appropriate. So I love how that's just filled in that little corner down in the bottom left hand side. Now I've just grabbed my paint pen and just putting some scribbly lines around the words just to anchor them to the page, and it also makes them not look like they're stuck on, even though they are stuck on. So we're coming to just about the end of the page. So again, I will list all the products from my website that were used in the description box below, and also head over to Facebook and you can check out the direct links. Here are some close-up pictures for you to have a look at, and I will catch you all again in our next video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!